You know, we talk a lot on this podcast about sort of general ideas for business communications, essentially both public-facing and internal communications, mainly how you can use digital signage for that, but we kind of take this more sort of abstracted 2 stages out from the ground level view of things. But it is a technology, and it is technology-based, and there are things like screens and wires and whatnot, and one of the things you have to think about is networking. I don't really know that much about that, but thank God I'm here with somebody who does. And that is Joe Murray, systems engineer and architect for Visix. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Derek. How's it going?
Great. So I'm hoping you can educate me a little bit and some of our audience members on some of the networking considerations.
Absolutely.
For digital signage.
I love tech.
He loves tech.
Some might say that's why I work here and have my job. So
right.
I love tech.
Well,
so
then that works out quite nicely.
I'm more than happy to talk to you about it.
Do what you love, and what you love will love you.
Is that what they say?
No, but it's my new hashtag.
Cool.
I'd like to thank Joe for talking to me today, and I'd like to thank all of you for listening. This is digital signage done right. Whether you're new to digital signage or a seasoned pro, this podcast gives you practical advice about systems, communications, and content to better engage your audience. I'm Derek DeWitt, Communications Specialist for Visix. Welcome to Digital Signage Done Right. I know networking to a certain extent in my consumer life, like, at Christmas, I'm the guy that does the lights on the tree. I'm super particular about how they're done. Mm-hmm. And just for the record, it's small, colored, blinky strings.
You're a pro.
I'm a pro. One wrapped around the trunk and then the others branching out in discrete
You painted
sections.
a beautiful picture there.
Right, yeah. And obviously, you're setting up your computer and your Wi-Fi and stuff at home. I know how to do all that stuff. How much different is networking in a digital signage context?
Well, a lot of it depends right from the gate with, is your system hosted, in the cloud through us, or
Right.
is it going to be on-premise?
Okay.
Because that changes basically every networking requirement.
Gotcha. All right. So not a decision to be taken lightly.
No, yeah. This is something you want to think through. This is something you want to have planned well before, we work with you and implement things. I will say there has certainly been a trend of customers going to our cloud offering, our hosted offering.
Well, it's just kind of becoming the thing now, I think.
Yeah, I would say it's not just us, of course. It's certainly an industry-wide thing. People are moving towards not having their own hardware on-premise. They're moving to, hey, you guys host it and do maintenance in the cloud and subscription-based stuff. I mean, basically as a whole, the whole tech industry has gone into subscription stuff. And, we'll take care of all the hard technical stuff for you. You just deal with the content, the end stuff.
Right. I just want to consume it.
Yeah, honestly, that's exactly correct.
I don't want to make the food. I just want to eat it.
Right. Just let me have it.
Yeah.
So I would say we can talk about cloud hosted stuff first.
Is that more complicated or less?
It depends on how secure your environment is.
Gotcha.
I would say for a regular customer, it's not inherently more complex. In fact, you could certainly make the argument it's less complex because you don't have to deal with your own on-premise server. We'll take care of that for you.
Sure.
So that's certainly less complex there, but you've got to make sure that you've got a solid and stable internet connection. Obviously, that's a huge requirement because if you're going to hit our server, up here in the cloud, then you better have a pretty great internet connection, especially if you're going to be uploading videos, downloading videos to the players, things like that. That's a pretty serious consideration. So I would say solid internet. You want to make sure you've got that. Ideally, we'll have some type of public IP address that will help make setup much easier. Although if you don't have that, it's not the end of the world. We can work around that. And we're aware that a lot of customers don't have that type of capability or don't want to handle that.
Yeah, they think it's insecure.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. They have to get it from their internet provider, and they have to configure their internal firewall properly. So yeah, we definitely understand that not everyone's going to supply us that. But a public IP address, and then with Signage Suite, we have this new software component that we didn't have in the older Access DV9 software, and it's called a relay. Think of it basically as just a PC that sits on your network that during initial setup communicates with our cloud hosted server, so your players don't have to. So you've got all your engaged players. They'll communicate directly with the relay, which is physically located at your site and then it will communicate over the internet with our hosted server.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so there is an additional component of the relay during setup. But yeah, if we're hosting a cloud-based system for you, then you're going to want the relay, preferably a public IP, but not the end of the world if you don't. And then you're going to want to make sure that you've got the proper ports open between the relay and our players.
Right.
Because we don't just use like port 80 or 443 like a lot of softwares do. We have our own proprietary ports we use to get content very quickly, and it's all.
And I should think this would be any cloud-hosted digital signage.
Absolutely, yeah. It really
very much the same thing.
Exactly. That's not unique to us. Any
Right.
enterprise-grade software is going to have enterprise-grade requirements.
Right.
And that's something to take note of. I think a lot of customers, I don't want to say forget that, but you maybe aren't used to that if this is their first sort of redundant, supposed to be on all the time system that sort of operates itself. Digital signage really works that way. It's autonomous. It's supposed to boot up by itself, start running content by itself. You can push upgrades. And so I think a lot of customers sort of forget that, yeah, we're going to have special requirements. The entire digital signage industry does, because this is not like most other softwares and services you have at your organization.
Right.
So we certainly have some more enterprise-grade requirements, but it's to make sure that things work seamlessly, that we don't interfere with other products on your network, and really just that everything just works well and consistently works well.
Right. I mean, that's the dream. Okay, so that's cloud. How is an on-premise system or deployment different?
So on-premise is different in that you actually, as the name implies, you have all the components on site, actually at your organization. And so
it's all there. Lock the door, swallow the key.
Exactly. No one's ever getting to it.
Yeah.
And so, that a lot of customers, a lot of government customers will say, oh, it's got to be on-prem, which is, I totally get that. I used to work in healthcare. I get that. So basically, with an on-premise deployment, you have to provide your own server. We're Windows-based software, so have a Windows server. You will install our Access TV managed software on your server, and then if you've bought hardware from us for the players, then it'll already have Engage primed.
If not, then you stick it on there.
Exactly. You've got to install Engage on your own hardware. And then the only internet access you need at that point is to activate our player licenses and our managed licenses.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Very technical. Exactly. However, we do actually now have government licensing, which is for customers that just cannot have internet access, for their internal systems.
Right.
Which again, I can certainly understand where that's coming from.
We're in a bunker 50 feet down.
Honestly, yeah, that's it. We do not allow internet.
I worked in an air-gapped facility.
Yeah, that is a thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't mean you can't have nice digital signage.
Absolutely. Actually, and you bring up a good point. You don't have to inherently have internet access to use our software and our services. However, you need to note that things like AccuWeather will not work.
Right, you're not going to get any kind of automated content feeds.
Absolutely.
Right.
You will have to manually take care of a lot of your content.
You're on your phone going,
yeah, right.
What's the temperature tomorrow? Type it in. What's the time? Type it in. What's the time? Type it in.
I mean, I'm sure someone out there does it.
Yeah. One very overworked employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So how does this stuff get activated then? I mean, is it like on a stick or something, like a thumb drive? You have to go and someone has to physically plug it in and go, okay, it's authenticated and
so
you can use it?
The way government licensing works is we build, a version of Access TV Signage Suites, let's say version like 1.30 in the future. When we make that installer, we're going to make our regular installers for our regular customers, and you distribute those over the internet. Customers install it, or we install it for them, they just license it.
That's how we do Adobe Creative Cloud,
exactly.
Office 365.
Exactly, you've got your product key and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
If you are a more secure customer and just do not allow internet access at all,
or just super paranoid,
you can use the government licensing. And basically, we build, version 1.30 for you, let's say on January 1st, just to make dates easy.
Right.
We then allow that software to run for 13 months from the day that we built it and assembled it here.
And then it needs renewal.
Exactly. And then it will need a renewal. So after 13 months, it will preserve all your content. It's not just going to delete everything, but it
Start
will,
over.
Exactly, but it's not going to play content, and it's not going to allow you to log in to manage.
Gotcha.
And
I
so
understand.
to relicense it, you would actually install a newer version of Signage Suite that we built later.
It's actually kind of a smart way to make sure that people have a more up-to-date version. Because, I know that there were some clients, well, we're not naming names, but even before Signage Suite came out and it was just Access TV, I mean, the last iteration of that was 9, and there were people who were still on 4.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And then they would say, it just doesn't work the way it used to. It doesn't, huh? Well, that's a shocker. How odd that 4 iterations of the software later, it's not working so well.
We changed a few things here and there.
Yeah. Just to say, we didn't just change colors,
Yeah, right.
Well, I read a stat the other day. Maybe you know the answer to this, maybe you don't. Without an update, what's the average life of an app that you stick on your smartphone?
Oh, on your smartphone? Gosh.
Yeah, you stick it on your smartphone.
It can't be long. I'm going to say maybe a year.
30 days.
Wow, that's hilarious.
30 days. In 30 days, if you have updates turned off, it will begin to misbehave.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, it's 30 days.
Especially if you have, let's say, like the Facebook app or something. They're changing API
Which
calls.
I hate. I'm on record as saying I hate the Facebook
so
app.
So brave.
Hate it.
But yeah, I can see never.
Please.
I can see something like that, something really complex, just not working after 30 days.
Yep,
of
sorry, but we're all done with you. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I guess if you had to come up with that kind of a system, because back to the government thing, because there are these clients who are like, hey, we want this, we'd love to have it, it's what we're looking for, but we have these externally imposed rules, and there's really not much we can do about that.
Right, and I'm sure any IT experts listening to this will completely agree with me when I say, you can leave computers unpatched and you can leave them vulnerable and everything. If they're not on the internet, they might be okay. Like I'm sure we have some customers here running like Windows XP still. But if they're not on the internet...
who are you people? XP.
I mean, if you're not on the internet, it technically is not a security vulnerability.
Yep, that's true.
Especially if you have the computer itself in a very secured area, then it's fine. I've heard rumors of banks still running like Windows NT 4. As long as they're just not on the internet and only certain employees have access to them, then it's fine. It still works. So that's we really built the government licensing specifically for customers that like banks, like governments, like even some more secure colleges that just say listen, we have the most secure environment, and that means no internet. I get that.
Right. Okay. No problem. Active Directory was the state of the art thing. Way back
the
when.
Future.
It was the future, and now it's becoming the past.
Sort of. So there's definitely sticklers to Active Directory AD integration, to this day. And I used to be an AD admin. I totally get it. But
and just real quick, for those that don't know what Active Directory is, what is it?
An excellent question. No one knows, Derek. Active Directory is a Microsoft technology that basically combined directory services of users and computers into one sort of software. So basically, it makes IT work way easier for organizations because it's a central management point for all of your users on your network and all of your computers on your network. So you can push policies to those computers, you can create users, delete users. It's very, very good, and it was definitely
certainly a time saver.
Absolutely.
Right.
But nowadays, as we mentioned earlier, people are really moving to the cloud. So you've got cloud-based stuff, and Microsoft has adapted AD into a cloud offering. It's part of their Azure offering. But a lot of people are completely rethinking, how they manage computers and users over the internet. And that's where you get into single sign-on stuff like SAML. That's where you get into, some more complex technologies that we've started rolling out into Signage Suite.
And what's the benefit of this single sign-on business?
So I'm personally a big fan of single sign-on because it eliminates a lot of passwords, and it eliminates
thank God.
Yeah, finally.
I'm so sick of it.
I think we finally, as a society, hit a breaking point where we started getting more complex password requirements and all these different passwords.
Well, and they're not
passwords can be the same.
standard. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this one needs a capital letter. This one won't let me have a capital letter. This one has to be 6.
Got to have that
This one-
special character.
Yeah, I mean, it's maddening. And, I read an article a few months ago that said, from some IT folks, who said passwords are the worst
Oh, they are the worst.
way because, I mean, you see it on movies and TV where like, oh, the guy just taps the keyboard for a while. Oh, I broke it. And all I can assume is that the guy's trying to do brute force.
I mean,
There's no way he broke that in an hour.
Yeah, passwords are the worst. Like I said, when I worked in healthcare IT, we tried to get rid of passwords years ago because that was a constant vulnerability is users just leaving their passwords written out on sticky notes and everything.
Or,
and
what the most common password is still.
like password.
It's password.
It's unbelievable.
It's so sad. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 is next.
Yeah, QWERTY, I'm sure, is probably a good password.
Yeah, really.
But
I mean, that's what Mr. Robot shows. If anybody watches that show, Mr.
absolutely.
Robot shows that the way you hack a password is you hack the person.
Absolutely, it's social engineering, I believe, is what they call it. But anyway, to refocus, so single sign-on basically takes care of a lot of that by saying, you know what, instead of every service you use having its own, unique username and password combination, we're just going to give you one username, one password, and that's going to log you into all of the services that you use.
Right.
So
I as a program, will take care of all the
exactly. So it is very truly single sign-on. You sign in once, and you've signed in everywhere. And so we just integrated a version of single sign-on into Signage Suite, and it's called SAML, or the Security Assertion Markup Language, for those playing at home.
I wonder what it meant.
Now you know. Specifically, we're using version 2 of that standard. So I know that we've tested this with Azure AD, which is sort of what I was hinting on earlier, with Okta, with Shibboleth, and with CAS, CAS.
Shibboleth,
that's a good
great
name. It's a good one. And there's tons of other SAML providers that, as long as they comply with that SAML 2 specification, it should work with Signage Suite.
Really,
and it's been great. We've just started rolling it out, but we've had a 100% success rate with all these providers, all these single sign-on providers.
Well, that ain't shabby.
Ain't that neat? And it's been really, really cool. Customers really love it, especially IT, because, or I should say, let me back up. Users love it because they only have, one username and password for all their services.
It's still password, but still.
But still, it's just the one. and then IT love it because it's way more secure.
Sure.
So it's really, really nice. You don't have to remember a specific password for your digital signage.
I was reading something again, this article about how passwords they're not really very secure at all. You can very often guess what somebody's password is, or if you have enough computers, you could brute force break it just by trying all the combinations. But they have devices now that, like infrared cameras, allow you to see heat. It allows you to see Wi-Fi in a space, and the way that you move through a room, and thus that Wi-Fi signal is different than the way that I move through it, which is different from the way that Sean moves through it. The way that we move is completely unique to us. Even though it's just a silhouette, they can identify, oh, that's Joe, from the way that he moves.
And you definitely didn't get this from just Mission Impossible, right?
No. This is a real thing.
That's pretty
I know
cool.
it sounds crazy, right? And so there's an idea that eventually they'll get this technology to the point where your laptop or your phone or whatever will automatically know it's you through a combination of recognizing your face, recognizing the way that you hold it, recognizing the way that you move. And so it will just automatically turn on when you approach it, but when I approach your computer, it won't turn on.
Oh, I mean, I've got that on my iPhone right here. I've got the iPhone 10, and it's got Face ID, so you can just look at it, and it does a 3D scan of my face, and will unlock just for me.
But if I make a mask of your face...
Supposedly it still won't work because it uses, what is Apple called?
Is it like heat?
Subdermal processing or something.
Oh, yeah,
it's
okay.
a whole thing.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool. I found it, I've never had an issue with it.
So I'd have to kill you and take your face off.
Yeah,
like Hannibal Lecter.
Absolutely, and then you can finally read those text messages that I've got.
Thank God. All right. What are some common mistakes people make with trying to get networking and digital signage to work together?
I can say not allocating enough bandwidth can be a bit of an issue. If your signage is comprised of just, pictures, text messages,
sure,
then that's all good and fine.
Slides,
PowerPoint slides, that's not going to take up a lot of bandwidth. Full HD used to be the standard. We're moving to 4K as the new resolution standard.
And I actually heard that there's an 8K out
Yep,
there.
absolutely. Yeah. That's already in a draft specification.
Isn't that ridiculous? I mean,
It looks cool.
Can the human eye even see a difference?
There's a lot to it. It comes down
300K.
to yeah, exactly. It comes down to like color accuracy and
Right.
refresh rate, all this other stuff. But I mean, there's definitely a point of diminishing returns, I would say.
Yeah, I think at a certain point it's just a
But
game.
But basically, you do need to remember to allocate proper bandwidth for your signage system.
Meaning on the network.
Absolutely, on the network. Because if you are synchronizing all these larger 4K videos and everything, and maybe they're 10 minutes each, or
Right, that's a lot of
that's
data.
a lot of data moving around. And if you want your content to publish and synchronize pretty quickly, then you better not have just some regular 10 megabit per second connection. You probably want something like 10, 100, 1000 networking, something like that. Gigabit networking. It is worth noting though, because I know development will kill me if I don't mention this. We are not streaming content from either our cloud server or on-prem server to your players. It is sort of synchronized in what's called blobs. Seriously,
really, that's fun.
Yeah, it's blob. Yeah, we have the best terms in tech. We have GUI blobs, cookies.
Cookies.
It's good stuff. If you take a video and you've uploaded it to your managed server, and then you want that video to play on your engaged players, the server does not stream the video from the players,
which is what Netflix
or to the players.
does,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
YouTube
So that is a
does.
constant use of bandwidth. Rather, you upload the video to the managed server. The managed server will synchronize it to the players, and then once the players have it stored on its local hard drive, it's actually not using bandwidth anymore. It's not really utilizing the network.
Right, because now it's temporarily local.
Exactly. It's local to the players, which is nice because it's not taking up bandwidth or it's not constantly bogging down your network. But it's also nice because if your network goes down, if your server goes down, something like that,
It still works.
exactly, the content still works, which is worth noting. I think a lot of customers are under the impression we're streaming stuff all the time.
Right.
We're just doing basically synchronization, and then once everything
goes
is local to the players.
Here you go, and then it goes.
Exactly.
And then what? Does that expire after a certain amount of time? Does
No.
it withdraw it?
So what happens is, depending on how you've set up Signage Suite, it can be down to, or as quick as every 5 minutes, the player will check with the server and say, hey,
Are they the same?
is the content the same that I have locally? Has the user made a new layout? Have they changed something on the layout? Have they deleted content,
Gotcha.
made new content? And if the server says, actually, you've got a new schedule now, then the server will provide that content to the player,
Put it
and
in
the
the
player
blob.
will exactly, and the player will pull it.
That's pretty interesting.
It's pretty cool.
So bandwidth, very, very important.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm going to mention firewalls again because we
I've
do
always
use,
wondered how the heck this works with firewalls, especially
Yes.
at universities. I know it can be tricky.
It can be a little tricky, especially if you have universities that have multiple different schools, like the School of Engineering, the School of
And they're all using
Architecture,
different-
and they all have different segments on their network, and they have different firewalls. It's a whole thing.
Right.
So the firewall ports are very, very important, especially if you're cloud based, because you've got to make sure to open up the ports to the outside world. That's very important. But yeah, making sure that you've looked at our networking guide. I think we've got it available on the website.
Yes.
So you definitely want to make sure that you've looked over, your IT has looked over the networking guide to make sure that all the proper ports are opened, that your server is at the correct specifications that we want, that your network is at the correct specifications, because otherwise it can just lead to a subpar experience or the product may not work at all.
Right, which
And
is
that's not fun.
certainly suboptimal.
Yeah, it's a little suboptimal, as we say.
It's not just you're not just buying a consumer product here. You're
it's
not
enterprise
you're not
grade.
going to do an unboxing video of digital signage.
Right.
It would be a very long, week-long video.
Unfortunately, and also fortunately, we've sort of been spoiled by consumer tech nowadays because consumer tech has never done more, and it's never been easier to do a lot of stuff. So
I mean, seriously.
Seriously.
I'm an Android guy.
Mm-hmm.
I kept it for 5 years. I had the Galaxy S5.
Mm-hmm.
I went, okay, it's no longer able to handle these new apps,
Mm-hmm.
so it's disintegrating. So it won't work at all, and sometimes. So I got the S10, and in the old days when I went from an S3 to an S5, I had to spend hours downloading this and this. Now it just says, do you want me to find a little thing you click? Do you want me to find any other Samsung phones in the area? And I said, yes.
Sure.
And it found my old S5, and it said, okay, I'm just going to pull
Neat.
everything off that.
That's
and it
cool.
pulled all the files, all the apps, the address, everything. It
Right,
missed,
that's
it missed
cool.
one thing. So I just went, boom, I made a sandwich. I came back, it was done. And
Magic.
I was like, that is amazing. Yeah, we are very, I think
Right,
that's a very
we're
good
very
point.
spoiled
We're really
by
spoiled.
consumer tech. Exactly. So the classic phrase, make it just make it work. What I think a lot of customers find out, a lot of smaller customers especially that aren't used to enterprise grade solutions like our products, is that there is setup. The magic doesn't just happen because things need to be redundant. Things need to account, our software needs to account for all these use cases. Unfortunately, it's not just a boom, bam, out of the box, everything just works experience. It's a collaboration.
Yep.
It's a whole setup. But once it gets set up, everything's great.
Right.
And it works really well.
And each deployment's unique.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are so many unique individualizing factors in each deployment that it has to be that way,
Right.
I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just like each audience is unique, and so the content that you put onto your digital signage is tailored to them, the actual physical infrastructure of that digital signage is also going to be unique to your particular organization. So it's a lot of good food for thought. Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Murray.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Hey, want more free stuff? Then head to the resources section of Visix.com for free masterclass guides, blogs, videos, and more to help you with your digital signs. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review of this episode, and connect with us on social media.